It all started in 1986, the year of the Chernobyl disaster and mad cow disease. Mexico was fortunate enough to host the World Cup for the second time in its history, and by many accounts, the 1986 Mexican national team was the greatest one of all time. Due to this and the fact that football was the most popular sport in Mexico, there was quite a lot of buzz and optimism. This iconic team was led by Hugo Sanchez, the greatest CONCACAF player of all time, alongside Manuel Negrete, the scorer of the best goal in World Cup history, plus Thomas Boy, the all-time leading scorer for Tigres in Liga MX. Chicharito's dad, Javier Chicharo Hernandez, was also a part of this squad, so you know they were stacked. Ultimately, the 86 Mexican squad went on to beat a decent Bulgaria squad in the round of 16, but failed to go through as eventual World Cup finalists, West Germany, led by Rummenigge, beat them 4-1 on penalties after a 0-0 scoreline. This was the last time Mexico ever made it past the round of 16. 1990 rolled around and Mexico's misfortunes began to reveal themselves. A journalist in Mexico did some investigative work and found that two players that were in the Mexican squad for the 1988 CONCACAF Under-20 tournament were over the age limit. The president of the Mexican Federation immediately denied the accusations, but it was already too late. The story started garnering more national attention in Mexico, with journalists everywhere scrambling to find birth certificates of all the players. They ultimately found that two players were indeed 2 years above the age limit. As soon as the snitches over at the United States Soccer Federation caught wind of this, they submitted a complaint to CONCACAF alongside the Guatemalan Football Federation. CONCACAF conducted an investigation and found that it wasn't just two, but in fact 4 players who were above the age limit. CONCACAF immediately disqualified Mexico from the 1989 FIFA Youth World Cup and instead sent the United States and Guatemala as representatives. FIFA not only supported CONCACAF's decision, but extended a 2-year ban on all international play for all Mexican national teams. This meant that they were disqualified from the 1990 World Cup, and a nation so in love with the sport was left to rot on the sidelines of the biggest tournament in the world. 1994 rolled around, and Mexico was happy to be back. They were the first team in CONCACAF to qualify for the World Cup, and they dominated their group, with only 1 loss in 10 games and a positive 19 goal difference. They were eager, not only to play in the World Cup, but to do so in the United States. They wanted to prove a point, that even though they had missed the previous World Cup, they hadn't lost a step. People were ready to leave the embarrassment that their federation had caused them in the past. Everyone was ready to move on with another great generation of Mexican players, once again led by Hugo Sanchez, who was 36 at the time, Saguinho, an America legend and the man who scored a CONCACAF record 11 goals in the 93 Gold Cup, Luis Garcia, who's now a football commentator for TV Azteca, Jorge Campos, the second shortest goalkeeper of all time who could also play as a striker, Claudio Suarez, the most capped Mexican player ever, and last but not least, Ignacio Nacho Ambriz, who captained the squad for some reason. Mexico was placed in a group with Italy, Norway, and the Republic of Ireland. The group was so competitive that all 4 teams ended the group stage with 4 points. However, Mexico and the Republic of Ireland qualified first and second in the group. Mexicans were cautiously ecstatic with the result. Qualifying above Italy had seemed like nothing but a pipe dream beforehand. This was not enough to satisfy them, since the ultimate goal was and always is to win the tournament. In the first match of the knockout stages, they had to face a familiar opponent, Bulgaria. Bulgaria, led by Hristo Stoichkov, was once again a decent squad, but after all they had beaten them in 86, everyone was sure they could do it again. 3-1 on penalties was the final scoreline. Another European opponent had struck us down via penalties in the round of 16. No Quinto Partido. It was a heartbreaking loss, but they were in a better place than they had been in 1990. As one generation ended, Mexicans looked longingly towards the future. 1998, France. Another great generation of Mexican players. This team was led by young players such as Cuauhtémoc Blanco, the most recognizable Mexican player of all time, Pavel Pardo, the second most capped Mexican player ever, Oswaldo Sanchez, the 100 times capped FIFA Football 2005 cover athlete, and Paco Palencia, who is head coach of perpetual Liga MX bottom feeders Lobos Buap. Alongside such youthful spirit were some experienced veterans such as Jorge Campos, Ricardo Peleas, and Alberto Garcia Aspe. It was a mix of the new gens and the old guard. Mexico got a tough draw, a great Netherlands team, a tough Belgium squad, and a pesky South Korean side. The group results came down to the last match day versus the Netherlands. Goku and De Boer scored early to give the Dutch a 2-0 lead ahead of Mexico. Then, Mexico, in probably the greatest comeback in their history, came back with goals by veteran Ricardo Pelés in the 75th minute and with a 94th minute winner by Luis El Matador Hernandez. Definitely one of the greatest goals in Mexican history, an instant classic. But they had no time to enjoy their victory. Germany was next. Everything started so well. Who would have thought we'd be leading 1-0 against Germany, am I right guys? Everyone wanted the game to end immediately after El Matador scored his trademark clutch goal. However, Germany actually managed to come back, unlike last year. Klinsmann scored in the 74th minute and Bierhoff scored in the 86th, shocking Mexico with 2 late goals. Another round of 16 date with Germany, another round of 16 exit, 2-1, disappointment, no Quinto Partido. 2002, Korea/Japan. Mexico qualified alongside Costa Rica and the United States. Once again, they were drawn into a tough group with Italy, Croatia, and Ecuador. As always, another World Cup, another round of hope. After beating both Croatia and Ecuador, Mexicans were eager to watch the game versus Italy to see how a ragtag group of Liga MX stars could do versus an Italian side that featured Gianluigi Buffon, Maldini, Inzaghi, Totti, Zambrotta, among others. Keep in mind, Serie A was actually good at the time, and everybody knew how well those damn Italians could kick a ball back and forth. During the game, Jared Borghetti scored one of the most amazing headers you'll ever see and celebrated it with such passion that it symbolized the Mexican love for the sport. Even though the match ended 1-1, Mexico topped the group and they had their arch enemies, the United States, in the round of 16. The United States in the World Cup? Might as well get ready for the next round, am I right guys? Well, not exactly. Another round of 16, another loss. This one hurt. To truly understand such a brutal dismembering of the Mexican pride, I can only say that we're willing to accept American dominance in pretty much everything, except football. No matter what, Mexicans will argue that we had a better team than the United States that year, but it was simply not to be. It was humiliating and it spawned the 2-0 meme a few years later within US soccer circles. Another round of 16 exit, no Quinto Partido. 2006, Germany. I know many people are skeptical of FIFA rankings, but Mexico was 4th coming into the tournament, and that gave many Mexicans a sense of pride. We were up there with the big boys. We had a good team led by Argentinian Ricardo Lavolpe, and we played as a team. We played so well as a team, in fact, that even a young Pep Guardiola was impressed by the manager and the team. We finished 2nd in the group behind Portugal, but it really didn't matter. We had a great group of guys. Even if we were facing Argentina, we were confident we could win. We'd had enough. No more heartbreaks. A great cup run would prove to the world just how good Mexican football really was. But then, Maxi Rodriguez happened. The moment every Mexican in the world died. That's all I have to say about this entry. I don't want to give anyone any non-flashbacks. No Quinto Partido. 2010, South Africa. It was certainly a rough ride, not that it was heartbreaking, we just flat out sucked. Around the time the 2006 World Cup ended, the voices of the Mexican media and the fans that wanted Mexican players to play in Europe became a lot louder. More and more people believed that our players playing in Liga MX had become complacent and that their development would always be stagnated because of it. They had a ceiling in Liga MX and players could not reach their full potential unless they migrated to Europe. We had spectacular youth players, but they never amounted to much. Therefore, people started migrating to Europe. Carlos Vela was sold to Arsenal. Giovanni Dos Santos was being hailed as the next Ronaldinho in Barcelona's La Masia. And Chicharito moved to Manchester United with Sir Alex Ferguson after this World Cup. Others weren't far behind. Hector Moreno moved to AZ, Andrés Guardado went to Deportivo La Coruña, veterans Ricardo Osorio moved to Stuttgart while Francisco Massa Rodriguez and Carlos Salcido were at PSV. Unfortunately, that was simply not enough for the 2010 squad to be any good. The 2010 squad was the wrong combination of young and old. They were either way too young or way too old. To be fair, there wasn't a great deal of optimism for this squad, even though they beat France 2-0. They qualified for the round of 16 once again in 2nd place, behind Uruguay and in front of host South Africa. However, Argentina faced us once again. Even though we had European experience, we were thoroughly smashed, 3-1. Another round of 16, another exit. these defeats were starting to pile up. No Quinto Partido. 2014, Rio. What an excruciatingly painful campaign. Mexico struggled to qualify for the World Cup, and we went through 4 different managers during these qualifiers. Plus, we were nearly eliminated by Panama with a 1-1 result. That was until we kept our hopes alive, thanks to an incredible overhead kick by Raul Jimenez in the 85th minute. We lived to see another day. Once again, we were about to miss out due to a 2-1 Panama victory versus the US, until we were saved by a 92nd minute United States goal. We were absolutely gone before the Graham Susie goal had been scored. We barely qualified to the World Cup playoffs. Blasphemy. Mexican media and fans were very freaking mad. Rightfully so, too. We were depending on miracles to survive. Some people wanted to see the team fail because maybe that way the Mexican players, coaches, and federation would finally learn their lesson. The federation hired America manager Miguel Piojo Herrera after his dramatic league title win versus Cruz Azul. We went on to beat New Zealand in the playoffs, 9-3 on aggregate, which meant we had somehow qualified for the tournament. Going into 2014, expectations continued to stay low. We got another tough draw. Host nation Brazil, Croatia, and Cameroon. We were all sure they were going to finish last in their group, however, the impossible happened. We tied Brazil 0-0 in Brazil. Then we beat Cameroon 1-0. We just needed to beat Croatia and we were into the knockout stages. Croatian manager Niko Kovac talked shit about the team, and Luka Modric even went on to say that our legs were shaking at the thought of facing them. We shut them up with a 3-1 result, with goals from Rafa Marquez, Andres Guardado, and Chicharito. Against the Netherlands, Giovanni Dos Santos surprisingly scored. I'm sure everyone remembers Cristian Martinoli's iconic call. Gio, you haven't done anything for the national team in years. I have always asked you for a goal, and now you deliver. I love you, Gio. We really thought we were gonna win, and then Wesley Sneijder's rocket came out of nowhere. Well, whatever, we can still get to penalties and win with Memo Ochoa. There's no way we can lose. And then, no era penal happened. Another round of daggers stuck into Mexican hearts. To this day, I maintain that it wasn't a penalty, but then again, that's probably just the Mexican in me. Another round of 16 exit, no Quinto Partido. 2018, France. It was certainly a good experience. It's pretty much a meme at this point that we will never make it past the round of 16, so very few people were actually expecting it to happen. Beating Germany in Game 1 was a morale boosting lift, as was the hard-fought victory over the Koreans 6 days later. However, things went downhill pretty quickly. Mexico panicked against Sweden and got thoroughly out-thought and out-hustled, performing like a bunch of amateurs. The team was fortuitously saved from an early departure thanks to the Koreans' dismantling of Germany. The Sweden result meant that Juan Carlos Osorio's side had to play against Brazil on Monday instead of Tuesday against Switzerland, a game it would have likely entered as a favorite. Overall, it was a failure. Brazil was way too good, but Osorio's decision to start 39-year-old captain Rafa Marquez and leave the likes of Jesus Corona on the bench certainly didn't help. If it wasn't for the outstanding performance of goalkeeper Guillermo Ochoa, the scoreline would have been far worse than 2-0. As you know, this was the 7th time we made it to the round of 16th, and the 7th time in a row that we've been bounced from contention at the same stage. It's not even a habit at this point, it's virtually an addiction. When you get that close that many times yet are unable to get further even once, it's a huge letdown. Mexico's army of passionate supporters deserve much better. Since 1994, Costa Rica has made it to the World Cup quarterfinals. So has Senegal. South Korea made a semifinal. Paraguay, Turkey, Romania, Bulgaria, Ukraine, and the US have reached the Elite 8. Yet none of them even made last year's tournament. Mexico has played at the edges of a deeply satisfying World Cup run for a generation and more. Yet it has never quite gotten there. It's simply not good enough anymore. There is no shame in losing to Brazil, but for Mexico, there shouldn't be any pride for meeting the lowest possible expectations. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Go ahead and leave any constructive criticism in the comment section below, and other than that, I'll see you in the next one.